Hello, everybody. My name is Janet Sheriff. I am the head of Newfoundland.Gold, Strategic Marketing Alliance with companies that are busy exploring for gold in Newfoundland. Thank you for your time today. It's a pleasure to be back with you. I'm very pleased to welcome 3 of our member companies, noting that we do have 12 members and they're all busy and active in Newfoundland. And today we're joined by Joel Freudman of TRU Precious Metals, who will be presenting first for an update on their activities. I want to also welcome Chris Buchanan, who is the Chief Geologist of C2C Gold, and he will be presenting an update on C2C. I am also, for full disclosure, Chair of C2C, but I will be moderating today. And it gives me great pleasure to welcome an old friend, Adrian Fleming, who is with our newest member, Gold Island. Adrian and I have worked in similar jurisdictions, as have Chris and I, and it's good to see him back. And he'll be giving a bit more detailed presentation on our newest member, Gold Island Inc., which is a private company that plans on going public in the new year. So with that, today's presentation is being recorded. We will have a dialogue after the presentations on various issues of interest, and we will be taking questions. Please, everybody, write in your questions. I will be going through them, and I will pop in and out between the presentations. So with that, I want to turn it over to Joel, and I'm going to put it on full screen, Joel, and let you take it away.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me here, Janet. Good afternoon or good morning, everybody, depending where you're dialing in from. My name is Joel Freudman. As was mentioned, I'm the co-founder and CEO of TRU Precious Metals Corp. Our tagline is relentlessly working to unlock shareholder value. And I hope that over the course of this presentation, I'll demonstrate how our company's really accomplished that since we set out on this mission earlier this year. Just to start off, Janet, maybe if you wouldn't mind flipping to the next slide for a second. We have our disclaimer slide for a moment. Just keep in mind that I will be making some forward-looking statements during this presentation. And then you can also move ahead to our intro slide. So here's the disclaimer. I actually put that together myself. It's kind of an interesting intro to the presentation. My background is actually a securities and mergers lawyer. If anyone joined the panel in mid-August, you would have already gotten a little bit of the bio, so I won't repeat everything about TRU. This time I'd like to focus a bit more on the progress we've accomplished in the last 6 months or so. But I think that mindset to having a transactional background has very much approached or very much colored how I approach the company, as well as how our team approaches the company, which is, we're transactional, we're entrepreneurial, we look for opportunities. It's probably a somewhat unconventional approach to simply just going and drill. We want to take a more multifaceted approach to the business. The company highlights for TRU Precious Metals. The real centerpiece of the company is our flagship Gold and Rose project. It is in the central Newfoundland Gold Belt, as are a number of companies at this point. I think what's really unique about it is there's a diagonal line that runs through the province of Newfoundland. It's called the Cape Ray Valentine Lake Shear Zone. This is a known deposit-bearing structure. So there's on one side of us is a company called Matador Mining. They have 840,000 ounces of gold. It's a known resource, and they're to the southwest of us. So you can picture them down here. And the other side of us is kind of the elephant in the room, Millertown.Gold. They're TSX listed. They have a 700 million plus market cap. They have an over 4 million ounce resource that they've been steadily building through infill drilling. They're putting that into production as a mine. They have a royalty from Franco-Nevada. They have money from some of the Franco-Nevada founders. That's kind of the behemoth in the area. It's actually the largest undeveloped gold resource in all of Atlantic Canada. And so between these two companies, Marathon and Matador, guess who controls this part of land is TRU Precious Metals. So we're really ideally situated geographically as well as geologically, being sandwiched between these two gold deposits is kind of how I like to put it. And I think thanks for flipping there. This map really illustrates where we are, and that blue line is the Cape Ray Valentine Lake shear zone. It's kind of like prime real estate in the province. That's the centerpiece of the company. But around it, we have built, as much of a company as we can, particularly for a junior explorer co. We have a really strong team. At this point, somewhere around 10 to 15 people between employees, consultants. We have, service providers, and our team, and very importantly, is Newfoundland based. So I'm actually I'm Toronto based as the CEO. We do have some people across the country in various roles, but the whole core of the company and our exploration efforts are based in Newfoundland. Our Vice President of Property Development, Barry Green, he's in Grand Falls, Windsor. So that's central Newfoundland. Is about a 4-hour drive from the project. I've done the drive with him along logging roads and highway, which cuts through our project. Our exploration manager, Pierce Bradley, also in central Newfoundland. We have a handful of people who are on our team as employees, also in central Newfoundland based, and then a number of service providers from the province. And so I can't really overstate the importance of having people, boots on the ground, not only during COVID times, but in addition, Newfoundland is a competitive jurisdiction. It's a great jurisdiction to work in, but other people, numerous other companies know that as well. And that's why we're proud to be a member of this alliance with my co-presenters here and with other companies, because there's only so many resources to go around on the island in terms of drilling, exploration personnel. The assay labs there are backed up, which I'm sure we'll discuss later on. And so it's good to have people on the ground who have relationships and knowledge of the geology and generally the infrastructure and personnel available in the province to actively explore our project. So, and then kind of in terms of some other corporate accomplishments, a lot of the bigger milestones earlier this year in the real setup, we did $7 million in capital raises across 2 rounds earlier this year, including an all-institutional round in June. We acquired this project from TSX-listed Altius. They're about a $700 million, $800 million market cap company. That's a project generator and royalty company. And so those are actually they're our second largest shareholder. We have Eric Sprott in our shareholder base as our largest shareholder. Most of it was kind of first half of the year business. In the second half, and even since August 19th, which was when our last presentation was here, the key is really Golden Rose, but our efforts to methodically and systematically approach exploration of the property. Now, this project is huge. When we picked it up from Altius at first, it was a scattering of claims. That was about 105 square kilometers. Well, I mentioned at the start about my transactional background. In the last 4 or 5 months, we've done about a half dozen separate transactions to more than double the size of the property. So again, very transactional oriented. We have done option agreements, staking, as well as outright purchases to consolidate the land package at Golden Rose. We firmly believe it's in the right area and the right geological features. So we're basically accumulating as much land as we can around the existing starting package that we got. In addition, though, you can only build so much by acquiring land. You obviously need to have something underneath the ground. We are a mineral exploration company. We are exploring for gold. And so to that end, we announced and then are currently executing a 5,000 meter drill program at Golden Rose. It's been ongoing since mid-October. Pretty frustratingly, we don't have nearly as many results back as we would like because of this assay lab backlog, which again, I'm sure we'll touch on a number of times today. But what's important is we're executing in terms of what's within our control, we're executing the drill program as best we can. We hired the same driller we used from earlier this summer on a smaller drill program on a secondary property. So we have a built-in relationship. We got slightly better rates than if we were just putting out a full RFP because of our relationship. And they're executing on time and on budget, including despite some very difficult weather in Newfoundland in the last couple of weeks. That's about as best as we can do as a company employing a driller. We also have other service personnel and providers we've dispatched to the property. Over the last few months, we did an airborne magnetic survey. We did a ground IP survey to kind of firm up drill targets. To go actually all the way back, we were doing a whole bunch of soil samples and general prospecting and mapping and data compilation in the summer. So we really moved sequentially. Before even going on drilling, we did about 4 or 5 months of work on this property as soon as we acquired it. We're currently doing this 5,000 meter drill program. The property, like I said, is more than doubled in size since we picked it up. There is, according to our geologists, it's probably a 1 to 2 years of surface work we could do before even having a really good handle on all the drill targets on the property. So that should give you a sense of just how massive this property package is. We're currently drilling at 2 specific areas. Actually, maybe if you wouldn't mind, just flip back to that other one just briefly. Thanks. We mentioned the Woods Lake Gold Zone. This is a known gold zone on the property. And if you look at the circle on the left of the slide here, there are historical gold hits here. So we're not firing blindly. We do know there's a gold zone on the property, and we're going to try and infill that, get a handle on, how much is there? Can we expand the zone? We're also doing a bit of drilling at the King George IV area. This is where we discovered a whole bunch of visible gold at surface, more visible gold in till sampling. And recently we put out a press release suggesting there may be a secondary shear structure, or we think we've confirmed it actually, that runs through the north part of our property that's more recently acquired and into the King George IV area. And then just in terms of how much potential there is at this property, as well as the prospectivity, this image here we just put out probably, I think, last week. This is actually just a fragment of what seems to be a 20-kilometer secondary shear zone that runs across the top of the property. We think it may actually continue all the way down to Matador, who's southwest of us, and who, again, they have an 840,000 ounce resource. And there was some high-grade gold, copper, and silver samples taken at surface as part of the soil sampling, and we only just got those results back about a couple of weeks ago. So no shortage of room to explore here. We've expanded and consolidated the project as best we can. We think there's a lot of runway ahead for further exploration. And maybe Janet, now's a good time to flip to our last slide, which is, in summary, kind of what are the key talking points here? We are advancing Golden Rose. We've got most of the drill program done. It should be done by end of this year, perhaps early next year. In terms of catalysts, drill results, of course, for the company, we certainly so far think there's something there. It's up to us to continue to prove it out as best we can, whatever's in our control to execute a successful, methodical exploration program, deliver the best results we can possibly pull out of the ground. And those results should be flowing over the course of Q1 2022 as we get batches of results back from the lab. So that's, those are obvious drivers for what we would hope would be a re-rating of our stock based on the potential of Golden Rose. That ties in with another point here. We think there is very good or excellent relative valuation upside potential. Our stock has rebounded from the lows a couple months ago, which is nice. We think that if we deliver either new discovery or some higher grades than are expected, those would also be catalysts to kind of to put this property and our company on an even wider radar screen than is currently the case. We have a very strong team. It's not just me. We have a strong team across finance, admin, corporate communications, capital markets, and of course, exploration, Newfoundland-based exploration. So we have a bunch of people who are pretty relentlessly working at the company to do the best we can every single day and deliver results for our shareholders in the market, as well as the local area in Newfoundland. And finally, in terms of options, our ROI options, we do look at transactions both on a property level as well as at a corporate level, M&A transactions, which again ties back to the kind of transactional entrepreneurial nature of our company, to see where we might be able to kind of bring some extra value out of either existing non-core properties or whether we might be able to consolidate additional properties that we think have geological merit. So I think that probably does it for a bit of the recap and update for TRU Precious Metals, but stay tuned. Janet, are you muted, or is that just me?
That is me.
There we go. Should I drop my webcam now?
Thank you very much. I appreciate your presentation. Next up, we will welcome Chris Buchanan. He is the chief geologist from C2C. I am involved with the company as well, but I'm going to let Chris handle it. I'll just do a quick introduction of him. Very fortunate to have Chris working with us. We work together up in the Yukon, and fortunately, Chris has a lot of experience in Newfoundland, having completed his master's at Memorial there. And Chris, I am going to drop off and let you take it away, if that's all right.
Yeah, thank you, Janet. So I'm Chris Buchanan, as Janet mentioned. I'm the chief geologist of C2C. And I lived in Newfoundland for 10 years and was going to school and worked extensively across the island in gold systems and in northern Labrador as well. So I've had some experience with most of the belts that we're looking at and that are returning results across the island this year. Are you ready for the first slide? So right now we have a market capitalization of just under $16 million, a pretty decent share structure, and important, stable shareholders that support. I'm not really a corporate, or I haven't been focused on the corporate stuff recently, but I'd like to tell everybody quite a bit about what we've been doing on the island and what our work program has looked like this year. So our core property package is in the Central Mineral Belt. It's an area of the island that's been traditionally explored for base metals and had a number of significant mines that are highlighted on the map as Buckens and the Ducks Pond VMS deposits. But in the time frame that Buckens particularly operated, gold was not really an exploration target, and that leaves a lot of potential in this area to explore ground that has never really been looked at with gold systems in mind. So we have three main property blocks: Barons Lake in the southwest, Millertown in the middle, and the Badger Group the Badger Block at the top. What I like about these property packages is to the northwest, we're bound by the Red Indian Line, which is a significant crustal scale suture zone that separated ancient North America from Africa and was formed when the Atlas Ocean was collapsed. And so this is a significant source of fluids and formation across the region. To the southeast, we're bound by the Valentine Lake Shear Zone, which, as Joel mentioned in his presentation, stretches from Cape Ray all the way to the north coast of the island, and contains the Valentine Lake gold deposit at 4 million ounces and the Wilding Lake prospects that are returning good gold results in the area. So this is two important regional scale structures that bound our property blocks. Next slide. Yeah. So we've been busy for the last 6 months. We've started work in late May, and it's been a year of really largely focused on target generation. We've got a lot of property and a lot of ground that hasn't been extensively covered in the past. So to tackle this, we started with a really extensive soil sampling program. We collected over 20,000 samples, and we've been prospecting all of our properties as well. And to date, have collected more than 400 samples across the properties, largely from drift prospecting, but also from outcrops when we are fortunate enough to find them. In conjunction with the ground geochemical work, we flew a high-resolution airborne mag survey, and that was done in conjunction with VLF-EM to identify structure, and a LiDAR survey, which will combine both the ground geochem and the airborne geophysics to identify structures and correlations of geochemical anomalies with what we think are important structures in the region, and explore those, or that'll focus our targeting from a gold perspective. And hopefully we'll have, well, not hopefully we'll have, we will have several drill-ready targets that we plan on drilling in the new year. So we've put permits in place for all of our property packages, and we have a reverse circulation drill in Millertown right now ready to go. And as our data finishes coming in over the next couple of weeks, we'll plan that drill program and start shortly in the new year. We also benefit from funding from the government through their Junior Exploration Assistance Program, and this is important because it's just a sign of how supportive the Newfoundland government is of mineral exploration in the island. They're not just financially, but they're a strong resource for information about historical exploration, the geology, and understanding, helping us to understand where we're working and what we're trying to achieve here. And that's even further enhanced by just the general population of Newfoundland. The Newfoundlanders like having us here. They're very supportive of mineral exploration in general, and that makes it a great place to work. Makes it a very enjoyable place to work. Next. So our Barons Lake project is our southwesternmost project area. We collected 3,500 samples on 4 grids. And the main takeaway from this was that we generated several key high-grade soil anomalies across each of those grids. We followed this up with prospecting, and we expect to drill a number of these targets when we get our final geophysics delivered and integrate this data with the geophysical data and some structural interpretation that we've had done over the area. So we're quite excited about the targets that are developing in that area. Our Millertown project is in the central portion of the project area. It received 12,000 samples or soil samples on 7 grids. Again, thematically, we developed a number of really good-looking soil anomaly areas, and we've been prospecting those. One of our key successes in the Millertown area is it's labeled as proposed drill target on the map, but it's one of our highest grade soil anomalies in the entire project area. And it's coincident with arsenic and antimony and other key pathfinder elements for the type of gold system that we're looking for. And we've also found a number of very large angular quartz vein boulders in and around that anomaly. So it's one of our higher priority drill targets that we'll tackle in the new year when we start up the reverse circulation drill. Next. So to the northwest is our Badger project. It's another large property package. This area has received the most historical gold-specific exploration of our entire property belt, really. In the early 2000s, the Jacqueline and Christopher veins were discovered and drilled, in the 100,000 ounce gold resource with a 9.5 gram per ton average grade was developed there. So it's not super large, it's not Valentine Lake, but it certainly indicates that these systems are in the area and gold is present in the structures. Historically, the exploration model for this area was similar to the Bendigo-Ballarat vein systems in New South Wales, Australia. And we followed along with that targeting premise, and a lot of our soil grids, which are kind of highlighted in greens and blues across the property package, were targeted on structures that we felt from the geophysics were associated with the fold system and of higher potential to contain gold-bearing fluids. And we're still, results are pending from that, but we took 4,000 reconnaissance soils across the property, and we're hopeful that we'll get some good anomalies to follow up on in the new year. We've also done a bit of prospecting across this property, and that's one of our highlights of the fall was the discovery of sulfide-bearing boulders at what we call Jacqueline X. We prospected here to follow up on, it's adjacent to the Jacqueline deposit. It's on trend with the Jacqueline main zone veins. And we felt that, the stratigraphy and the structure and the proximity to a known gold resource would be a pretty high probability place to look. And sure enough, we did find a number of boulders that look very similar to the Jacqueline vein system, and results are pending on those, but we expect those back shortly here in the next couple of weeks. And next. So we have a couple of other properties in the area, a joint venture project with Buckens Resources, which is a private company focused on base metal exploration in the area, mainly around the Buckens deposit area. So we optioned the South Tally project and the Lake Douglas project from them. What we like about these projects is proximity to the Valentine Lake shear zone. It runs through the northwest corner of the property, and most of the property is underlain by the Rogerson Lake conglomerate, which is a regional stratigraphic or rock unit that's known to host mineralization at Wilding Lake and forms the hanging wall to the Valentine Lake shear zone. And the southern part of the property has a volcanic package that's also known to host gold mineralization to the southwest as well. So we're quite hopeful that this is a well-positioned property on a very productive structure with a good exploration history. And we've just recently started a trenching program on that project to follow up on some of the historical results that were already existing. And we're quite hopeful again that we'll be developing a new exciting project in that belt. So I believe that's the last slide. Is that right, Janet? Yeah. So just in summary, we've had a busy summer. We've developed a lot of projects or a lot of targets on our project areas. The company's been working pretty hard to put together, both a strong management team with a lot of industry experience and And part of that was putting together a strong technical team that's focused on understanding the geology of our project area and how to tackle it to find new gold systems in the area. And that's everything that I have for today.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. That was a very good presentation as well. I do apologize. I have a small technical difficulty on the slide changing. I've got a bit of a time lag, so thank you for your patience. Next up is Adrian Fleming from Gold Island. Adrian, I'm going to let you introduce yourself, and I will bring up your presentation. I do apologize with my technical difficulty. Maybe give me a couple of seconds ahead of time to change slides, and then I can keep you moving. And I'm going to drop off and let you introduce yourself as I bring up your presentation. Best of luck.
Thank you. Morning, everybody. Just wait for the slide to come up. I need to be quick so that we have plenty of time for discussion at the end of this session. How are we going, Janet? Here we go. Yes, next slide, please, Janet. The opportunity that Gold Island presents to you is that we have a number of different properties in Newfoundland. We have total claim packages of about 1,700 square kilometers, and these are blocks of ground staked by Sean Ryan on the basis of very detailed research that he's carried out. We plan to move our properties very quickly to drilling, and I'll be talking about that in a minute. We all know that Newfoundland is a popular spot to explore, and it's a great place to work. And interestingly, for many years, it's been essentially neglected as a location for hard rock gold exploration. But with the successes of other companies, there's a lot of other companies now working in Newfoundland. I'm a geologist. I've been working in the gold exploration space for many years, and I've had the very good fortune to have been either the leader of or a member of teams that have made significant discoveries in a number of different parts of the world. As I mentioned before, Sean Ryan, who I worked with before in the Yukon, is a key part of our team, and then Ross Sherlock, a geologist who's currently working at the university in Sudbury, is the other of our very valuable technical advisors. We're also working very closely with the group in Toronto called Power One Capital, and they've already raised a substantial amount of money for us. Paul Robinson, very highly experienced geologist, currently living in Chile, moving to St. John shortly, will be our VP Exploration. Next slide, please. I just want to reflect on my experience with Sean in the Yukon back in 2007, 8, 9. And I headed up a company in those days called Underworld Resources. We optioned a property south of Dawson on the back of detailed grid soil geochemistry that Sean Ryan had done, and I'm showing you that here with my cursor. We followed up with the trench. This one ran 1.3 grams over 37 meters. In the following year, 2008, we drilled our first holes here. We cut 20 meters at 4 grams per ton. From 14 meters. That was the discovery hole. And then in 2009, the next year, we had been very fortunate to define 1 million ounces at 3.3 gram per ton gold, and we were taken out by Kinross in 2010. The reason I'm showing you this, and it's not Newfoundland, is I want to show you the power of exploration from first principles and using grid geochemistry. This is greenfields exploration. At the same time, Sean was sampling at the Coffee deposit, or Coffee area, about 20 kilometers south of us. And these gold features here are what led to the discovery of the Coffee deposit. That property is optioned by Kamenak. They eventually defined 3.2 million ounces at 1.7 gram per ton, acquired by Goldcorp in 2016 for $520 million. This is fundamental grassroots exploration, and it's what we are largely going to be doing in Newfoundland. So our land package consists of 7 different project areas. This map shows some of the different styles of gold mineralization in Newfoundland. They've got these major structural corridors, structural breaks, which are important to localize gold mineralization, which some of my colleagues have already been talking about. And our flagship property is this one up in here. And so on one of our 7 properties, it's not a grassroots play. We have interesting values at the surface. Next slide, please. So this is our flagship property. We call it Notre Dame and Mings. And I just want to point out a couple of things. There's major structures coming up through here. This is the Bay Vert fracture, suture, major structural break, lots of cracking in this area. And then this historic sampling, principally lake sediment sampling, done by the Newfoundland Geological Survey in this area and over here, is what led Sean to stake this area. And there's basically been no exploration done. And look at all the smoke in here. So, you know, there's got to be something that we will follow up in this area. And then we've got showings over here. Next slide. So our systematic soil geochemical work, which has been done by Ground Truth Exploration, who are a terrific team of people, consists of both grids and then traverses, following up these historic geochemical sniffs. And so given this grid here, for instance, that would be a lake sediment sample, and we're following that one up with a grid of samples. We've done 5,500 samples on these 2 properties. Expect to have those results back in January, and then we can carry on with the follow-up work. Next one. So these are the Burton Prospects. These are 3 showings we've optioned. It's within the Notre Dame property. And these 3 prospects you see here extend over a distance of about 1.4 kilometers. Lots of grab samples from the surface here running up to 10 gram per ton, and including here at Burton, 56 gram per ton over 2 meters. There's only ever been 2 drill holes put into this interesting property. They both returned, around 28 meters at 0.7 grams per ton. That's a great start, but no drilling here, no drilling here. We don't know what might be going on between these properties. So we have completed a soil grid over this already. We're doing ground mag. We've been on the ground looking at the geology, trying to understand what's going on. And this property will be one that we will advance quite quickly, and I'd expect that we'd have a core drill working on this during the summer of next year, 2022. I just want to flag 2 other of our 7 properties. This is Marathon's Valentine Lake deposit, 1.7 gram per ton, moving to production. It's going to be a cash generator because it's open pit, but we've got 2 properties, Annie and Blizzard. This is airborne magnetics, and that's a really important tool to help identify these major structures. So there's a big structural break going up through here, but there are other structural breaks coming through. I don't show you on this slide the historic sampling, but there's plenty of historic sampling in both these blocks that we will be following up. We have completed our first phase of discriminatory soil sampling on both blocks, and so with those results coming back early January, I'm hoping that we'll be able to quickly move to work on this property. So like the other companies that are working in Newfoundland, we are following a very systematic methodology with our exploration. I'm a great believer in lots of little steps. You do the work, you understand what that work's telling you, you move on to the next step. So we've done 10,000 samples, soil samples already this year. We'll move on to field prospecting and mapping, maybe using the probe, perhaps a bit more geophysics, infill geochemical sampling. And then one of the tools that I think is going to be very effective for us in 22 is Rab drilling. So these are fences of holes. We drill through the overburden, 2 or 3 samples in the bedrock, hit it with the PXRF, go on to the next hole. And that systematic shallow drilling follow-up should qualify these soil geochemical anomalies that we expect to get, just like the ones that Chris showed you in the previous presentation. And then, of course, this is the expensive part of the process, and we expect to get to that at least with Burton in the middle of the summer, and I'm quite sure that there will be 1 or 2 other prospects that we will drill with reverse circulation or core in 22. So let's just go to the last slide. As I said, I've been doing this business for about 4 decades. It's very addictive. If you've had some success, you want to go and do it again. And the key things you need for successful exploration, I just list here. We've got the properties. We're putting together a very experienced and quality team. We've already raised about $9 million to fund our work privately, going to an IPO next year. I've talked to you about structured small steps as an important methodology. You've got to have optimism and you've got to be confident in what you're doing, because it isn't always the case that the first few holes you drill deliver a home run. And then the other thing that's really important is persistent tenacity. So I hope that gives you a little bit of an overview of the flavor of what we're doing in Gold Island, and thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Adrian. It was a wonderful presentation, and I'm very excited about what you're bringing to the island, Gold Island. And I'd like to ask Chris and Joel to join us on camera now. I want to start taking some questions from the attendees. And I do want to apologize if we don't get to all of the questions. And again, please feel free to write in your questions. But first, before we get into them too far, one of the things that has been coming up quite regularly is, and I think everybody's mentioned it, is the slow results that have been coming in. Good results that are coming in, but I'd like to get a little bit of feedback from you on where everyone is with that, and maybe I'll start with Joel at TRU.
Sure. Given that we're actively drilling, this is something we heard about people who are drilling before us, and we're now experiencing it ourselves. Even in the summer when we did some drilling, it was taking, I think the normal turnaround time for drill results could be 2 to 4 weeks. It was taking us 6 to 8 weeks. We somehow got a batch of samples from this summer. Actually, we just got the results back this week. And they were kind of fuller analysis than were needed. It seemed to have just totally slipped through the cracks at the lab. So we already knew the results we wanted, but like the full results didn't come till 4 months after the fact. I think that's an anomaly as well, but realistically to get drill results, 8, 10 weeks is not at all out of the question. And so even when you send in rush samples, because you want to get an idea of a very specific interval and say, well, did we hit something, is this worth pursuing? That used to be, I think it was about 3 to 5 business days. It's now 2 to 3 weeks to get results. So there's a significant backlog, and there's only one lab on the island. They're doing the best they can. And that's for drilling, which is the highest priority results. So if you submit soil samples, rock samples, those things are even slower to come back. So it is an issue. It's a real issue. I think all the companies are doing their best. And there are potential solutions, like potentially a mobile lab coming to the island. But even that, probably any of these things are several months away. So I think everyone's just kind of doing their best to get in samples on a timely rolling basis, and the lab's trying to keep up. There is supposed to be a capacity expansion at this Eastern Analytical Lab. I was told in the next month or so, something with like electricity output, so they can, but it doesn't mean the results aren't coming. As you mentioned, Janet, the results, there are a lot of good results coming out. It's just taking a bit longer than everyone would like.
Great. Chris, did you want to add anything to that?
No, yes, our experience is rather similar to Joel's. We haven't been drilling, so we haven't been passing large volumes of samples from drill core onto the lab, but we do put out weekly rock shipments, and we chose, knowing about the backlog at Eastern Analytical, as much as I would prefer to use them because they're local, we send all our rocks to Moncton, to ALS. And they've been pretty good, but our turnaround times have slowed down from 4 weeks in the summer to 8 to 9 weeks right now. And unless I rush them, I get them in a couple of weeks then. But there's a transport issue there too, that we have to put them on a truck and they take a few days to get to the lab. So this is something we're all dealing with for sure. And next year, when we start drilling, this will probably become even more apparent to C2C, and we'll probably be looking for one of those mobile prep labs. help us
Excellent,
out.
thank you. I'll let Adrian see if he wants to add anything. I know we've been talking about having a technical meeting in Vancouver around Roundup with all of the companies in the alliance and looking at our collective buying power as part of a solution. So I just didn't know if you wanted to add anything, Adrian.
Yeah, sure, Janet. Yeah, two things. I want to mention two things. We know here in Newfoundland, as in many other parts of the world, that there are pathfinder elements associated with gold. And what seems to be common in Newfoundland is arsenic and antimony. So you've got PXRF, these handheld XRF units. You can zap your core or your soils or your rock chips. And that would perhaps give you an indication of if there's anomalous pathfinders, well, perhaps it's got gold. I think the other thing you can do is there are labs in other parts of the world, accredited labs, that are not busy. And I know, for instance, there's one in Indonesia, there's one in South America. So if you can get your samples processed quickly, you get a little bag, 100 grams, use FedEx, ship it to the lab within 2 or 3 days. And because they're not backed up like we're finding, you could get your results in a couple of weeks.
Excellent. One of the questions that's coming up is, and I'm going to, I'll reverse order this time. I'll start at Adrian and go back. There's a nuggety gold challenge in Newfoundland. And it's, I think, I know I've worked on a project that dealt with it. Chris did. You probably did too, Adrian. It's a wonderful challenge to have, but do you want to talk about some of the nuggety gold issues?
Yes, well, you know, nuggety gold is a great problem to have because that you probably have high grade. And, you know, the French mathematical geologists have done a lot of work on this over the years. And so what it is if you imagine you've got a loaf of raisin bread and there's only 4 raisins in it, if you put 4 knitting needles through it, what are the chances you'll hit a raisin? You probably won't. So the first thing you've got to do is take either bigger drill core or lots and lots of samples. And eventually, if you take enough samples, according to the theoretical modeling, mathematics, you eventually should get to have a reasonably accurate idea of the gold grade in your system.
Thank you. Chris, did you want to add? I know we've worked on a project together that had this, and it's a nice challenge to have, but it is something that's expertise.
It's a frustrating challenge. I've worked on, the project you and I worked on, and another one in Manitoba that suffered from very nuggety gold, and it's a frustrating challenge. I think that was probably one of the best descriptions I've heard from Adrian. It's hard to add much more than that, but I mean, I think it's important to to remember, sampling, drill densities, sample sizes, and consistency, with your sampling, making sure that all of your procedures in the cutting shack are being followed and are rigorous. And I think doing the statistics on duplicate samples and having a good QA/QC system are all parts of helping with that. And it's it is a nice problem to have. It's a frustrating problem to have, and it's likely one everybody's going to have in Newfoundland, hopefully.
Thank you, Chris. Joel, did you want to add anything?
Nothing to add, but I think I'm going to have raisin bread for lunch.
Janet, there is an analytical technique called screen fire analysis, where your ground sample is pushed through a sieve, and the idea is that the coarser material, the gold particles, will be caught on top of the screen, and the rest goes underneath. And so then you assay the plus fraction, the coarse fraction, and the minus fraction. You add those together. It's a slow process. It's got to be done manually. It costs double. But that is one way of dealing with it. I know one of our competitor companies is sending core, whole core, to Perth to be analysed, and that must be very expensive. But they've taken a different tack, and I'm watching to see how that works out for them. I hope it does. Expensive.
Mm-hmm. Yes, very.
That full screen metallic is something we had a drill core that hit like a little bit of visible gold, which is a great result. So the practice of our neighbors is to send it away for the full screen metallic assays to counter the effect of the coarse gold. And I don't remember what the quote was. I don't even know the dollar quote because our exploration manager looked into it, but I think it was like an 8 to 10 week turnaround. It's more than just a simple fire assay. So yes, it's slower and more expensive to try and counteract the effect of what should be a good problem.
Janet, if you think about diamond exploration, you know, the quantity of diamonds per ton of rock is even an order of magnitude less than what we find in economic gold deposits. And so with diamond exploration, they're looking for the pathfinders first, and then they just mine, you know, 10 or 20 tons and process that, and that gives them an idea of you know, what the grade is. And you know, Newfoundland.Gold may well have to, you know, take out a bulk sample and process it through a mill to, you know, get a really accurate handle on what they've got in terms of grade.
Yes, we had to do that at a project, and it was a necessary step, to be honest. A bit, sometimes stuff like this seems a bit unorthodox, but you've got to try different things in order to deal with some of those wonderful challenges of gold. One of the things I'd like to throw to Chris first, because it's coming up, is, and it's come up in different ways. Newfoundland's an amazing place. The province of Newfoundland and Labrador has had base metal mining, but it's been very slow to develop in gold. And I know we've all talked about this and different reasons, but Chris, you know, you studied, have your master's from Memorial, you've worked there through different eras. Maybe talk a little bit about what you see as why things have been delayed and really given us a great opportunity to have this modern day gold rush at this time, which people find hard to believe.
Yeah, and Newfoundland is a great place to work, and there's lots of gold here. You know, lots of visible gold, which is, you know, even in the world of gold systems, the global world is a rare thing, and we're kind of blessed to have so much of it on the island. And I think a lot of it over time, it's a lot of where people's interests are, and lots of times when the market is really roaring and the industry is going full guns, there's a lot of attention put on places like Nevada and Red Lake, which have known big gold deposits. And I think Newfoundland, being on the eastern edge of North America, has sometimes, you know, just been a little too far off people's geographical radar to capture their attention. And it's a difficult place to work in the sense that there is till cover, and I think, you know, other city suffers from that to some extent too. But in Western Australia deals with lots of cover, and it makes it more challenging. So making the big discoveries is a little bit harder. It takes a more systematic approach, and I think that's what I see being done differently now, is much bigger land packages being tackled and a much broader swath of regional geochemical surveys being done than what maybe has been done in the past. And hopefully maybe that's the secret to finding new deposits along some of these trends.
Thank you. Joel, did you want to add anything?
I'm not going to try and add anything to a Newfoundland-based geologist.
And I should mention that, Chris, you are in Newfoundland right now, and we thank you for coming out of the field to join us. But Adrian, would you like to add anything?
No. Are we going to talk about grade and people's perception, what they think we should be delivering to them?
I welcome you to bring up that topic.
Right, thank you. I think there's an expectation in the market that each of us is going to come up with Newfoundland.Gold type high-grade systems. And that isn't necessarily the case, and it isn't necessary that you have to find a high-grade deposit to make a viable gold mine. Gold occurs as part of the natural systems in the Earth's crust, and there's a thing called a tonnage grade curve. So, and to explain that simply, when you've got very high grade, you tend to have less ounces. When you've got low to medium grade, you tend to have more ounces. And so if you think about what Marathon have, you know, they're 1.7 gram per ton. They have about 4 million ounces, and that's going to make a very successful gold mine. If you've got 15 gram per ton or 10 gram per ton, and it's very narrow. It's not, 100-meter wide zone of mineralization. It's only 3-meter wide zone of mineralization. You've got to go to a different method of mining, more expensive, but it will still pay. So I hope people who buy our shares won't be disappointed if we start to bring back significant intervals of, 1 gram, 2 gram, 3 grams rather than 15 to 20, because of this natural distribution in the Earth's crust of the ratio between grade and tonnage.
Thank you. Joel, would you like to add anything there? Oh, you're on mute.
Yeah, I think it's, Adrian gave a more, sorry. Adrian, I think, gave a better, technical explanation that covered it. I just think in terms of, especially for me, given a non-geological background, the reference frame I use is, low grade is probably around 0.5 to 1.5 grams per ton, give or take. 1.5 to roughly 5 grams a ton is, let's say, medium grade, and above 5 grams a ton is high grade. So if you're looking at the results, that's kind of a rough classification system you could use. And then, but as Adrian said, you can build a successful mine in a different way depending on what the grade comes in at. So, and continuity is also important too, right? Because there are companies that say, oh, we got 100 grams per ton over 0.3 of a meter. You can only do so much with that. You need kind of enough of a zone that would actually be able to be developed into mine.
Chris, did you want to pipe in at all?
Yeah, I don't have much to add to that. I was going to bring up the continuity thing too. It's having a continuous zone with a reliable width and a decent overall average grade. That's the main thing to look for, so that it is actually mineable and can be followed.
Thank you. I'm getting a lot of questions sort of around capacity and COVID and HR. And one of the things I like about our alliance and the group of companies is that working together and just give a feel for people, because I know all of us have been very busy and implementing programs in the field through all of this, and maybe just talk a little bit about those challenges and if it's impacted work or if you see it continuing. I know, Chris, you're out in the field right now, so maybe we'll start with you.
Sure. So, I've been pretty busy through COVID personally. That I was fortunate enough to be in programs that were established and working, but it affect the whole industry overall. The big slowdown last year, and a lot of programs were put on hold with the uncertainties in travel regulations and be able to move people around the country to projects. And that kind of, that's passed to some extent. Certainly within Canada, it's relatively easy to move around the country. But we still, I think, the human resources challenge, I think, is going to remain with us as an industry, even through the travel challenges of COVID. A lot of people are tied up in current projects, so staffing is a bit more challenging, I think, than it has been in the past, finding available people that can travel to your project.
Excellent. Joel, how has it been for you in the field?
I've gone to the field twice, which is fun. I went last November, kind of in, pretty high profile time for COVID. It's hard to get into the province. I was mostly outside while I was there in the hotel, but on the island, particularly for mineral exploration, because much of it is outdoors, it seemed to be fairly business as usual. I went back this past June. I think as kind of COVID vaccinations increased and there were some loosened restrictions around getting into the province, it's helped things, I guess, get even more close to normalcy in terms of mineral exploration there. It's definitely a competitive market from an HR perspective. We have a number of full-time people on staff. In some cases, we did recruit away from other companies. And it's difficult to get people, to get, field crews and everything. Service providers tend to be backlogged. Drilling contractors are backed up. So I think some of what you touched on at the start of trying to work with other companies in the alliance and, you know, other neighbors of ours, it's important and pretty much necessary for sharing of resources where possible. We've talked to a number of neighbors about sharing of personnel, about trying to coordinate drilling programs so that when the drill is unused and somewhere nearby, we can take it and vice versa. So there is some, you know, definite collaboration going on or some cooperation, which is nice. But it's definitely, there is definitely a labor shortage in the province, which I think is good for the province of Newfoundland.
Excellent. Yeah, we've been fortunate at C2C. We've been working with Ground Truth. They've had a huge field crew and very busy. And Adrian, you're now using Ground Truth as well.
Yes, yes, great team. Isaac Fage is a class act.
Yes, it's amazing the volume of work they've been doing this year, and yeah, it's given how you think it would be with COVID, it has really worked, I think, quite efficiently. And we've all done some amazing work in the group, and yeah, I think our buying power collectively in the group is something that we all are aware of. I'm aware of the time, so I wanted to ask if there's any topics that you want to discuss before we start to wrap up and give a little bit of an overview on where each of the companies is going. But any topics that I've missed today?
Janet, I just want to mention something about pandemics. If you read about the history of pandemics, they go away eventually. So, you know, COVID will go away, the variants will go away. You know, there's gold at the end of the rainbow.
And it's in Newfoundland. Chris, anything that you wanted to add? Or any issues that we haven't talked about before we go into wrap up? Other than gold.
No, I think we. Sorry, what was that, Janet?
Other than gold being in Newfoundland, we can talk about that all you want.
Oh yeah, we hopefully find lots of that. No, I think we've covered lots of issues today, and I don't have anything specific to add to that.
And Joel?
I will throw in something non-geological related, which is consolidation through mergers and acquisitions. I think to plug our own company, we've been aggressive on the property acquisition front, doubling the size of our Golden Rose property. What investors in the market in Newfoundland has not really seen lately, to my knowledge, is consolidation. There's 40, 50, 60 companies in Newfoundland. There are new companies entering all the time. Gold Island's a good example. And with that many companies, both from a capital raising or financing perspective and a market visibility perspective, I have to think consolidation is inevitable, especially as companies start to prove up their properties and advance them. You already have a company like Millertown who frequently gets discussed as a takeover target. And I think it's just kind of a matter of time until a wave of consolidation gets going amongst you know, companies of all sizes in Newfoundland. And we'd like to play a part of that consolidation.
Thank you. And with that, anything else you'd like to wrap up with? I'm going to start with TRU and go across. Joel, anything else you'd like to add on what's coming up in the company? I know you've talked about your results and your drill program, but anything you want to add?
Nothing to add. Watch out over the course of Q1. We will roll out drill results as we get back appropriate batches of info. Stay tuned, and if we can do anything interesting on the M&A front, we'll look to do that too.
Excellent. Chris, anything from C2C you'd like to wrap up with? What's coming up?
Yeah, I think it's been a busy year. We've collected a lot of data and we've learned a lot about our properties and where and how to look on them. And we're gonna initiate a phase of drilling, relatively early in the new year. And I think there's a lot more excitement to come from this belt, and keep our eyes out for results upcoming.
Thank you. And Adrian, lots of questions about Gold Island and when you're going public, and you've got lots of work. So what's coming in the new year for you?
Right, yeah, I just want to mention Paul Robinson, who's our VP Exploration for Gold Island, and the next webinar will get Paul to take the stage. But we plan to go public probably in March or April of next year. But you know, we're only in first gear at the moment with Gold Island. We're going to be moving into second and third gear during 22, and I'm envisaging a lot of news coming out from the very extensive programs of exploration we're going to carry out next year. And I look forward to cooperation between the different companies in the alliance. And, you know, for instance, yesterday we were talking about sharing drill rigs, because when you're drilling, it's nice to be able to drill a few holes and then wait to analyze that core and get some numbers back before you move to the next stage. So when Chris is not using a drill rig, I'd like to use it, and then you flick it to Joel. And you know, that's one of the bonuses of a group like this, which you've set up, Janet. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Adrian, and thank you, everybody. Joel with TRU Precious, Chris, C2C, and Adrian with Gold Island. Really enjoyed the discussion today. I'm going to do a little plug for the Newfoundland.Gold Marketing Alliance. In 2022, you'll get to see us live at the Vancouver Resource Conference in January. We're also going to be having a technical meeting behind the scenes as we're working together. And you'll also see us at PDAC, where we will have a booth collectively. And we'll be starting up with our webinars. Please do check us out. We're on social media and web at Newfoundland.Gold. And thank you for your time today. It's valuable and precious, and we really enjoy sharing some of your time with you. And thank you again. This is being recorded. It will be sent to everybody, and feel free to contact any of us. All of us are listed on Newfoundland.Gold website, so you can contact the companies directly or go through us. It will forward the information. If I didn't answer any of your questions today, they will be forwarded to all the companies, and they can be in touch with you directly as well. So thank you again. This will be our last webinar before the holidays, so I want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and looking forward to a wonderful 22 on the beautiful island of Newfoundland. With that, thank you all very much, and have a great day. Thanks all.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you very much.